A kit's main customers are Europe. Even now, excluding the California Restoration Project and Seamangium development, 80% of design clients are European companies and governments. So far we have traded freely without any problems, but if a no-deal Brexit occurs we will be hit hard. As a result, executives were divided on the issue in favor of leaving London and staying. Opinions differed as to where to go if we left. President Peter Cazillo said, "There is too much uncertainty in the UK. It is said that only warehousemen are making money now. Companies that import products from the EU are stockpiling enough to burst their warehouses, and French and German companies that import products from the UK are the same. What the economy hates the most is uncertainty. I'd rather react if the worst happens, but I can't do this or that because I don't know what will happen." In this situation, Belgium, the Netherlands, France and Germany have offered various benefits to attract British companies. The EU is the UK's largest trading partner. Although Brexit has been decided, as can be seen from the Northern Ireland issue alone, there are a number of issues that need to be resolved. The UK has made it clear that once it leaves the EU, it will retain the customs union. It means that the movement of manpower will be stopped but the movement of goods will continue. In other words, they will do what is advantageous to them and not what is unfavorable to them. Of course, the EU cannot stand still and watch this kind of cherry-picking. The EU has pressured the UK to pay the price if it wants to remain in the single market, and May has agreed with the EU to abide by its demands, including a £39 billion contribution. The British House of Representatives rejected the agreement as humiliating, and Prime Minister May resigned in charge. Former London Mayor Boris Kane became Prime Minister. As a strong Brexit supporter, he pushed for a no-deal Brexit, saying he would not negotiate badly with the UK, and the EU said that there would be no further negotiations or delays in negotiations as the EU did. He thought, will there be a no-deal Brexit? But to his surprise it actually happened. As this problem dragged on for more than 3 years, the politicians and the people seemed to be getting tired of being tired. Now there were many responses that they did not know why they voted or whether the UK is really leaving the EU. President Cazillo shook his head. "If we voted again it would be a completely different result. But now you can't turn back time." As former Prime Minister May said, Brexit means Brexit. What else could there be? A no-deal Brexit is not unique to the UK. Considering the size of the economies of the UK and EU, if it becomes a reality, the global financial market will have a huge shock just like it did at the time of the referendum. During the meetings at a KIT headquarters, reporters followed me wherever I was. It seemed like I was hoping for an answer to the UK's future, just as I correctly predicted Brexit. Whatever I say will be a big issue. Wouldn't it be possible to throw England into chaos with just one word? British politicians, businessmen and senator aristocrats have asked to meet. I declined all requests on the excuse that I had a schedule. I actually have a schedule. A letter had arrived at the hotel. The envelope was sealed by melting wax and a seal was put on it. It was not written who sent it. When I opened it, it said, "Welcome to England." It was written on it. Do the British really like classic things like this? I escaped the reporter's eyes and got into the car. Oliver Taylor, who was riding inside with the bodyguard, asked, "Where to, sir? There will be no leaks of where I am going or who I am meeting, right?" Of course. The representative's actions are kept strictly confidential. I gave the address. "Please go here." Upon checking the address, Taylor was taken aback. But he ordered departure without asking anything. The car headed to Aylesbury, the capital of Buckinghamshire. About an hour later, we arrived in a small town a little far from the city centre. A mansion was located on a hill in a quiet village. The mansion was obscured by the surrounding trees. To find the entrance, we had to walk around the barbed wire for a while. 2 men were standing at the entrance. "What are you doing?" I said as I rolled down the window. "Tell them that Jin Hukong has come." Those who checked my face immediately picked up the radio and contacted me somewhere and opened the iron door. Just follow the road and go inside. After passing through the iron gate, a huge garden opened up. It was lined with water fountains and statues and well-maintained trees and flowers. And at the end of it stood a mansion that looked like it could only be seen in the Renaissance era. It was a long way from the entrance to the mansion. This mansion was built at the end of the 19th century. At the time, the Rothschild family purchased over 200 acres of land and built it themselves. Later, other houses and castles, including the surrounding grounds, were donated to England. However, the mansion was still owned by the Rothschilds. It felt unrealistic for people to live in a place like this these days. There are countless castles in Europe and some are actually inhabited. Picasso also lived in the castle in his later years. It's not that difficult to buy a castle if you put your mind to it. How would it feel to live in a place like this? But living in a castle is very inefficient. There are also management issues, hot and cold air, indoor movement, etc. In addition, it costs a lot of money to manage the spacious garden and mansion. Spending money on something like this is something you can do because you are rich. The most inconvenient thing is the location. Most castles are located on the outskirts or in the countryside, and transportation is inconvenient. So these days the rich prefer penthouses in the middle of the city. Well, it doesn't matter if you don't have to go out at all. The car stopped while I was thinking. I got out of the car. In front of the front door stood a young woman with a white man who appeared to be the butler. Dressed in her blonde, pure white upholstery, she grabbed the ends of her skirt with both her hands and leaned her back slightly. Welcome. Welcome to the Rothschild mansion. Like the medieval exterior, the interior was not formidable. A chandelier hangs from the high ceiling, a thick carpet is spread on the floor, and paintings that seem to have been seen from somewhere hang on the walls. I followed Grace Rothschild down the long hallway. The mansion is in the form of a long stretch from east to west. It would take a year just to move from end to end. How many people live in this spacious house? She stopped her steps only at the end of her east wing. A vein recognition device is installed next to the door, and a CCTV is installed above it. Apart from its old-fashioned appearance, it uses state-of-the-art equipment. After all, as long as humans have continued to live, it must have changed one by one with the development of civilization. When I take out the smartphone, data and Wi-Fi are fine. Her lock was unlocked as she raised her hand and pinched her veins. When I opened the door, I was greeted by the peculiar smell of old paper. It was the library. No, it was more like a library than a study. The bookshelf that reached the ceiling was lined with faded old books. The bookshelf was clean without a single dust, as someone regularly cleans it. The desk and chair at the end were antique furniture that would have to be sent to a museum rather than to be used in real life. It's rare for outsiders to come in here. Should I call it an honor? She smiled. I am honored. I saw a faded book open in the glass case. The intricately written spelling is unreadable. Is it Latin? What is this book? Grace Rothschild said. It's a Gutenberg Bible. Ah. I thought I saw it somewhere. Did I ever see it in a textbook? Is it real? Does it look like a replica? It was a stupid question. The Rothschild family has a history of 250 years. In the meantime, they bought numerous paintings, sculptures, and cultural assets in Europe. Some of them were resold or donated to governments around the world, but many are known to still be in possession. Do you know about Johannes Gutenberg? I nodded. No one will know. In Korea, it is famous for making metal type. It is our ancestors who made the world's first metal type, but it does not mean much. Technology is more important than who invented it, but how it changed the world. There is no particular history other than that metal movable type was first made in Goryeo, because the scope of his influence on the world is small. But Gutenberg is the father of modern typography. He discovered or created not only metal type, but also a printing press, paper suitable for printing and ink suitable for printing. The printing press produced in this way changed the entire history of mankind. Read more at wuxiax.com. Prior to the advent of the printing press, book production relied on transcription by skilled intellectuals, and the price of books was so high that only aristocrats and wealthy people could not access them. However, thanks to the printing press, the era of mass production was opened, and books were accessible to everyone. The first book he printed with a press was the famous Gutenberg Bible. Of course, its value is beyond imagination. Even if you put it up for auction right now, you could easily win over $10 million. There are currently about 50 books left. Was one of them here? He wanted to make a printing press, but he didn't have the money. Fortunately, a rich man named Johann Fuster lent the money, but he did not pay it back on time. Gutenberg, who lost his trial, lost all his printing press and technology and went bankrupt, died a tragic end. The printing press is definitely a revolutionary technology. However, new technologies do not directly translate into money. There are many cases in which competitors see the light of day after being hit by copying and releasing, or due to trial and error in the process of commercialization. It would have been even more so in the past when the rate of technology diffusion was slow. There are a lot of great inventors in the world. Some of them succeeded and became wealthy, but most of them collapsed and disappeared. In the end, the ultimate winner is the investor with the capital. J.P. Morgan's investment in Edison and Carnegie is a famous anecdote, and so are you. Darryl Sagan made electric cars, Toby Strong and Gerard Bacon made Face-It, Professor Haman Kim made OTK batteries, and so on. All of them have accomplished great things, but it was I who made the most money by investing my money in them. How about Rothschild? She smiled. So are we. As we were talking, a handsome young white man pushed in a wheelchair. But what caught my eye more was the old man sitting in a wheelchair. A few strands of his pure white hair remained, and his wrinkled face was covered with age spots. His stature was as small as a child's, and his legs were small compared to his body and twisted at odd angles. He wasn't hurt, but it seems like he's been like that since birth. He had an oxygen hose running through his nose. Without this help, he found it difficult to breathe on his own. Nevertheless, he was dressed in a suit and even his shoes. What was surprising was his eyes. Contrary to his crumbling body, his eyes shone as clear as a boy. There was even a sense of awe in such a sight. He said hard in a voice as if scratching iron. "Nice to meet you. I finally met you. My name is Grant Darrell Rothschild." He felt the same strong sense of incongruity as when he first met Grace. Is this person the head of a huge financial family called the Rothschilds? I greeted politely. "Nice to meet you. This is Jin Hu Kong." Grant Darrell Rothschild. Does this old man, who seems to be unable to move on his own, have been leading the Rothschilds for over half a century? His body was old and sick, and it was not like this. So he didn't come out of the mansion and avoid meeting people? The Rothschilds are not just a wealthy but a huge financial group. Even if he was the eldest son, he would not have passed the family down to a child born with an uncomfortable body. So, was there any other reason beyond the physical disability? For example, do you have the same foresight as me? He looked at me with a sharp gaze and asked, "What does it feel like to see the future?" I asked him, "How about Sir Rothschild?" I could tell he had no foresight. If you think about it a little, it's quite natural. If he had seen the same thing as me, he would have invested the same as me in all the events that have happened. No, since he's a Rothschild, he must have done a lot better than me. However, I was the one who made the biggest profit in the foreign exchange market during Brexit, and I was also the one who made Ronald president by investing in the Rust Belt. No matter how secretive it was, if someone made as much profit in the financial market as I did, the fact would not have been known. There was a strong longing and envy in his eyes. "You have what I do not have. I searched all my life and couldn't find it." He did not hide his pure desire. Am I so covetous when life is so short? It seemed difficult to speak any more. Listen to this child for more details. The white man again drove out in a wheelchair. Grace Rothschild put his hand into a drawer under his desk. Then the bookcase on the wall opened to the side, revealing the elevator. "Follow me." Seeing that, I sighed inwardly. Why do British people like classic things so much? There were no windows like a basement, and there was a soft light on the ceiling. It was similar to the appearance of books stacked on a row of bookshelves. But if the place you were just before was a library, this place feels like an archive. The sound of the dehumidifier and the ventilator running was audible. It seems that the temperature and humidity are closely controlled. What are you doing? He told me before I asked. This is where the history of the Rothschilds is kept. Are all these records left by the Rothschilds' ancestors? You don't know. What we've been through, our family, like other Jews, has been persecuted and wandering for thousands of years. The Rothschilds first appeared in history in the 18th century with Meyer Amschel Rothschild. But the history of the family may be much older than that. I said, muttering. Diaspora. I know. I studied a little. I did some research a while ago. The failure of the Kokhba revolt in AD 135 killed more than half of the Jewish population in Jerusalem. The Roman Empire banned Jews from entering Jerusalem, and they left their homeland and scattered across Europe and North Africa. If it had been a different race, it would have perished sooner. However, the Jewish people are both an economic community and a religious community. Because of this, they have been persecuted for thousands of years and have been wandering around protecting their culture and beliefs. The Jews who spread throughout Europe were mainly engaged in commerce and industry, and kept in close contact with each other. As always, information is money. Thanks to the compatriots in each region, the Jews had access to information faster than anyone else and used it for business. Gradually, the center of the economy shifted to commerce and industry, and the Jews accumulated enormous wealth. As always, the rich were the object of envy and jealousy. And this dissatisfaction appeared in the worst form of the Holocaust. But we did not give up. They built a nation of Jews in the land where their ancestors lived and reclaimed Jerusalem. After World War I, British Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour issued a declaration promising the establishment of a Jewish state in Palestine. The famous Balfour Manifesto. The fact that there was a back deal with the Rothschilds here is not just a conspiracy theory, it is a fact to some extent. She pulled out one of her books. Would you like to see me? I'm not a member of the family, can I see you? Of course. When I opened the book, I burst out laughing. There were letters written that could not be read at all. No, I don't even know what language it is in the first place. Hebrew. After the Babylonian exile, Hebrew was used only in ceremonies and rarely in daily life. Modern Hebrew is as if it was resurrected after the establishment of Israel, so if it was written in ancient Hebrew, it would not be easy to read even for Israelis. By the way, can I touch this book carelessly? If you touch it the wrong way, it will rip. You're not asking me to ask, are you? Does not matter. The important thing is not the book but the content inside. Perhaps the contents are stored separately as data. I handed her book back to her. Recently, I am writing in English and German. It's easy to read or write. That's a good idea. She began to speak as she skimmed through the books with her white, slender fingers. The Rothschilds had forerunners with foresight. Someone, you will know. Meyer Amschel Rothschild. Was it too? There are people who have better skills than others in any field. It's an area of talent that can never be caught up with effort. Some people just have something they can't have no matter how hard they try and aspire to. So life is unfair. Anyone can solve difficult math problems if they study hard. But not everyone who studies can become like John von Neumann or Alan Turing. Everything in the world is the same. Can't others swim like Michael Phelps because they don't work hard, or run like Usain Bolt because they don't work hard? There are people who are born to be able to do it regardless of effort, and there are people who aren't. Unfortunately, in the past, even if you had foresight, there wasn't much you could do. You can't go against the condescension of those in power to make money. Political power and capital power were always at war. In the past, political power was generally dominant. If Korea was an absolute monarchy and Park Si-hyung was the king, I would have been decapitated earlier. Success is often determined by the times and circumstances rather than one's own abilities. America and Europe are richer than Africa, not because whites are more conscientious and intelligent, but because they have more opportunities to get a good education and make money. There is a difference of hundreds of times between the ransoms of baseball players and soccer players 100 years ago and those of today's players. Is this because players' skills have improved hundreds of times over the past 100 years? Rather, it is thanks to the growing size of the league and sports market and the development of mass media. Now you can make hundreds of millions of dollars just by throwing or kicking the ball well. Had he been born 100 years earlier, such talent would have been of little use. The ability to handle leather or cut clothes would have been more important. The same goes for investment. In the past, to buy gold, you had to meet a merchant to negotiate a price, weigh them individually with a scale, check their purity, and hire mercenaries to transport them carefully so as not to be stolen. But now you can access the New York Mercantile Exchange (COMEX) online and place an order. As the flow of capital accelerated, the growth rate of the company also accelerated. In the past, it took decades for a company to grow. They had to buy land, build factories, hire people, and make and sell products. But now it grows into a unicorn in just 2 or 3 years. Evair surpassed GM and Ford without a single car, and Airbnb surpassed Hilton and Marriott without a single cabin. If I had been born 50 years ago, even if I had the same abilities, I would have earned less than a tenth of what I am today. What if you were born 250 years ago? Could this ability be used to create wealth? The visible future is limited. We need information to analyze it clearly. Now, anyone can easily find important information by entering a search term and a few clicks. But in the past, information was monopolized by some layers and propagation speed was slow. My ancestors knew the future when the Prussian army would be defeated by Napoleon. But when he found out, it was too late, and King Wilhelm did not believe it. All they could do was hide the king's property before it was taken over. As a result, the family's property was confiscated. As a result, the Rothschilds gained the trust of King Wilhelm and became the custodian of the royal estate. Meyer Amsel Rothschild had foresight, but his descendants did not. However, there is a low probability that people with exceptionally strong intuition were born. The branch family created by the descendants without any ability collapsed, but they survived the crisis and their assets were called up. Then the current governor. Yes. His grandfather also has a better intuition for detecting crises than other people. So he has led the family safely until now. In modern society, as the economy grows and finances become more complex, crises appear in more diverse and complex forms than in the past. But the outcome of the investment is one of two things: make or lose money. Even if there is no clear foresight, it is a huge strength to be superior to others. In a half-and-half gamble, even a 1% increase in your odds of winning will eventually wipe out all your money. It sounds like a plausible novel. How many people would believe me if I went out and told this story? But you know it's true. I saw Grace Rothschild. It seemed as if she was managing her family's affairs on behalf of the old and ill householder of hers. No matter how old she is, she will never exceed 23. She's not necessarily smart because she's older, but her experience and age are factors that cannot be ignored. Did you inherit that ability too? She smiled mischievously. Well, first of all, I'm pretty. Laughing spontaneously at the unexpected answer. But it's not something worthy of a joke. In fact, she has a doll-like beauty. She had blonde hair as if she had pulled out gold thread and blue eyes that looked as if she had crafted sapphires. Her features are sculptural and her skin is flawless. Perhaps you are not the only one who sees her and breaks her heart. Whether it's a man or a woman, beautiful appearance is her ability in itself. Especially if there is a halo called Rothschild. A prime example of this is Warren Harding, the 29th President of the United States. Considered one of the worst presidents in American history, he did not show the voters any of his qualities as president, but he was elected by an overwhelming majority. There is only one reason. It is because he has a handsome appearance that suits the president. Americans gladly left America's fate to its good looks. When I look at a person, I get a glimpse of whether that person will be helpful or not. It's not a perfect fit. As the saying goes, greetings is everything. Being able to put people in need where they need them is a great ability. So is she meeting people on behalf of her head of state? How am I? Do you think I will help the Rothschilds? Surprisingly, I couldn't feel anything in you. So the moment I met you, I was sure. Aren't you curious? What is that ability and how did it come about? Of course I'm curious. What is the answer? We don't even know. Yes. Kim was the answer. We have been researching for a long time to figure out that ability. But I haven't figured out anything. You've been tested too, don't you know? He collapsed and was admitted to the hospital in San Francisco, where he underwent all sorts of tests. But none of them could be considered unusual. Foresight has nothing to do with body components like the brain and DNA. If it has anything to do with it, it's the soul. All we know is that we have that ability. But there is no way to analyze the human soul. A few questions have been answered, but the biggest one remains. I asked her, "So why are you telling me this?" Grace Rothschild asked me instead of an answer. President Chang Min-ho is afraid of you. To be precise, they fear that political power will be neutralized by capital power. Which presidents don't. Korean politicians want to move the OTK Company Corporation to Korea. Only then will the politicians be able to impose sanctions. Have you thought about the future of OTK Company? I do not know. John Davidson Rockefeller dedicated his life to growing his business. He wasn't accumulating wealth by illegal means. At the time, monopolies were completely legal. But the United States enacted a new law called the Antitrust Act, and his business was forcibly torn apart. Is there a law against the OTK company from doing that? Nowadays, IT companies such as NPL, Google, MS, and AMZ are vying for the top position by market capitalization of listed companies, but ExxonMobil took that place just 10 years ago. And the predecessor of ExxonMobil is Standard Oil, founded by John Davidson Rockefeller. Energy is the backbone of a nation. However, this market was driven by only one person, one company. The U.S. government enacted the Sherman Act to prevent this. This is the so-called antitrust law. Rockefeller protested, but Standard Oil was forcibly split into dozens of companies. The law was made because of only one person and the law was applied to that one person. She asked me, is there an unlisted company as big as OTK Company in the world? She probably didn't know, but she said as if she had just remembered. There is only one. I said the name of the company. Aramco. Yes. Saudi Aramco is a state-owned company owned by the royal family. What would have happened if another entrepreneur had raised such a company in Saudi Arabia? Would that company have worked until now? Crown Prince Suleiman imprisoned the royal family at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel and extorted hundreds of billions of dollars in money and shares. Will this only happen in Saudi Arabia? The Communist Party of China has been outspokenly pushing its own companies to grow them into global companies. But now they are holding companies in check. Some businessmen were arrested on charges of corruption or retired from management. Some even donated all of their stock to the government. This meant that capital power could be overthrown by political power at any time. There will be no problems right now. You are the hero who saved America from crisis and you are close to President Ronald. But can we keep going? Can the OTK company remain the same even if the president changes? It will be safe for at least 4 years. At my words, she laughed out loud. Do you think Ronald can be re-elected? Ronald saved America from the Big One crisis. Its achievements were considered comparable to those of Abraham Lincoln or Franklin Roosevelt. Moreover, the U.S. economy is enjoying an unprecedented boom. It is hard to imagine that he would be re-elected. Before he became president, he was a real estate entrepreneur who would have financed the business he needed. And he likes women. What do you think we have? Real estate requires large-scale PF. Therefore it is closely related to finance. Ronald has a history of deliberately going bankrupt several times in his business, and his relationships with women are complicated. In the previous presidential election, Diane also fell on those points, but she did not get a fatal blow. But does she have more weaknesses than that? Are you going to threaten me? This is usually referred to as a political negotiation. Which one will Ronald choose? Will he step down as an honorable president? Or will he run for re-election with all the stigma behind him? It was after the Korean War that Seosung Group grew into a conglomerate in earnest. During those decades, the Seosung Group formed their own human networks in business, politics, legal circles and academia, and exerted enormous influence on Korean society as a whole. Would you call Korea the Seosung Republic? The Rothschilds are a family of financial conglomerates that have been around for 250 years. So, how much influence do they have on Europe and America? My mind got confused. What do you want to say? The Rothschilds have struggled with political power all their lives. And we know how to fix it. What is it? You become the king. No, to be precise, it should be called the prince. What do you mean? She continued, looking at my surprised expression. The Rothschilds have an island in the Caribbean. We moved the OTK Company Corporation there and joined the Commonwealth of Nations. It sounds silly, but it's not impossible. Among the British overseas territories and Commonwealth countries are small island countries with a population of only tens of thousands. However, no matter how much money you have, can a young Korean who has nothing to do with Britain create a commonwealth? It's easy when you become Lord Rothschild. What did you say? I'm going to be the head of the Rothschilds after my grandfather. Being the head of the Rothschild family means not only the honor of being a nobleman, but also having the power to control the enormous wealth and influence that the family has accumulated over the years. Just as the sons of chaebol families are fighting to inherit the group, there will be a huge struggle for succession within the family. But will you give me the seat? How? You married me. I was so upset that the words didn't come out. Are you going to marry a man you don't even love for the sake of your family? She said with her sapphire-like eyes shining. Korean chaebols get married out of necessity. The same goes for European royalty and nobility. How many of them really love and get married? If you look at the remaining European royal families, it is difficult to find those who are in-laws with each other. The Rothschilds also have ties to the royal family and influential people in Europe and the United States. Christine, who became Crown Princess of Norway by marrying Crown Prince Hermann, is Grace's cousin, and James Rothschild is married to Nikki Hilton, heiress of the famous hotel chain Hilton. And I like you. I'm crazy. What did you say? You said it before. I like lucky people. Who else in the world is as lucky as you? I cleared my mind. As you can see from the Virgin Islands, Bermuda, St. Lucia and Samoa, British and Commonwealth countries are still used as tax havens. Her words were, in a word, about creating a tax haven on their own. This is possible because OTK Company is an investment company. That way there will be no need to pay taxes, undergo a tax audit, pay attention to politicians or split the company. She reached out her hand towards my face. There will be a no-deal Brexit. The UK financial markets will be thrown into an unexpected chaos, and in a situation like this, who would object if someone who could solve the problem became a member of the Commonwealth? I felt something strange in her words. Everyone is predicting a no-deal Brexit to some extent. So the impact, if any, will be limited. What, then, is the utterly unexpected chaos? I thought for a moment, then my back became cold. Northern Ireland. Ireland achieved independence from Britain in 1922, but Northern Ireland remained a British territory. Afterwards, Ireland and the UK entered the EU together, and the Northern Ireland problem was settled, but the problem started to arise again due to Brexit. Ireland's position is that Northern Ireland is basically its own territory. If Britain really built a wall on its borders, Northern Ireland would be turned into a powder shed. Maybe war-level bloodshed beyond Bloody Sunday of 1972? The worst crises that nobody thinks will happen are the best opportunities. The moment her finger was about to touch my cheek, I grabbed her wrist. Chance? Is dying a chance? Did you think about the process when investing? What? You knew Brexit, but you didn't stop it. Do you know how many suicides have increased in the UK since Brexit? Have you thought about the EU citizens and refugees who will have to be evicted from the UK? Remaining 49.1 versus leaving 50.9, a difference of only 1.8%. If only 1% of them had changed their minds, the outcome would have been different. If I had started to stop, would I have been able to stop it? What about Ronald's victory? Was it really for the world or for your benefit? What is the North Sea oil field? You knew the rig was going to break. The North Sea is still covered in oil. Who is responsible for the damage caused to those who have lost aquaculture and fishing? How is Japan? The money that Nishida Securities lost by mistake was the Japanese people's retirement funds. The Japanese people must have an unhappy old age as much as you make money. I couldn't answer easily. Sheep are gentle animals, but in England they eat humans. Naturally, sheep, which are herbivores, do not eat humans. This is a metaphor for Thomas More's critique of the enclosure movement in his Utopia book. At that time, nobles and landowners fenced the land and turned farmland into pasture to raise sheep. Unable to cultivate, peasants were either starved to death or had to flee to the cities. She said with a smile. But there is nothing we can do to get good quality wool. It meant that they wouldn't care who or what happened to make money. Then what about me? Read more at wuxiax.com. I did not cause Brexit, nor did I damage the North Sea oil field facility. But it is true that he was silent even though he knew. Can I really say that I am not responsible for that? As much as I have made a profit on my investment, someone else has lost. Was that really fair? But bloodshed is a different story. Even the place where it happens is the UK, not any other country. Does it matter if there is a war in your country? Again, a strong sense of incongruity was felt in her attitude. I was born in an ordinary house and came to this position. But she has been a member of the financial conglomerate family Rothschild since her birth. Not only the life I have lived, but the way of thinking is different from mine. People see the world from where they stand. What does the world she sees look like? Why are you doing that? Why? She said in a calm voice. Francesco Pizarro raided and captured Atahualpa, king of the Inca Empire. And in return for his life he demanded enough gold to fill the room. King Atahualpa kept his promise, but Pizarro did not. King Atahualpa, who gave his all, was slain. After forcibly converting to Catholicism to preserve even the body. The vast amounts of silver and gold looted from the New World were loaded onto ships and headed home. Spain grew up sucking gold like it sucks blood. Britain also plundered those ships and took a share. It was the same with Hernán Cortés, who did something similar. The Aztecs did not understand and asked him, "Why do you white people need so much gold that they can't even eat?" Hernán Cortés replied, "Because I and my companions are suffering from a mental illness that only gold can cure." Perhaps that was the only truth he told the Aztecs. A smile appeared on her face. We all suffer from the mental illness of greed. That's why we need so much money that everyone can't even spend it. How are you? No matter how much money you have, you can't use it all. Even if there are several houses, you cannot live in them all, and even if you have several cars, you cannot ride them at the same time. It is out of necessity that those who do not have desire to have more because of greed. Greed is the driving force that moves the world. I couldn't deny her words. If the already successful entrepreneurs and investors hadn't tried to make more money, the world wouldn't have developed this way. She whispered in a sweet voice, "You can get anything you want." At that moment, something appeared in front of her. When I woke up, I saw Grace Rothschild's face. Her face was tinged with pure longing and curiosity. Have you seen the future? What does that feel like? How would you describe this feeling? She lit up her eyes. Have you seen the future where we are together? How do you Because I felt that way from the first time I saw you. She says looking at someone can help or not help. What the hell did you feel about me? Agie's not wrong. So, is it the right thing for me to marry Grace Rothschild and inherit the Rothschild family? He grabbed my hand. Many of the family will be against it, but it doesn't matter. You have that ability. This is for a Rothschild film. As Grant Darrell Rothschild said his whole life has been searching for, they desperately want this ability. You can't take it away from me, but it's possible to get me into Rothschild. Asians are said to be part of the Jewish family. Come to think of it, it's not that strange. At first glance, she was far from a traditional Jew. If the ethnic groups scattered across the country value pure blood, their number will inevitably decrease. However, Jewish society has maintained its identity through matrilineal inheritance and Judaism. Think about it. What can you do with that ability in the future? The Rothschild name can help you do what you do. The Rothschilds get foresight and I get the Rothschilds. What would happen if I combined my assets with those of the Rothschilds? The more money you put together, the more powerful it becomes. Going from $1 trillion to $2 trillion in financial markets doesn't just mean doubling assets. If the size of the asset doubles, the influence becomes more than tenfold. And for me, I have the foresight, and for Rothschild, I have connections and networks all over Europe and America. What if you combine these two? If the Rothschilds saw the same intelligence I saw, they would have earned several times more than I did. If you accept her offer, how much more money will you make in the future? $10 trillion? $20 trillion? And what's at the end? People die someday. You cannot live forever no matter how great a human being. Only death is fair to all. Have you ever wondered what that wealth will be like after you die? During the Great Depression, more than half of the families collapsed. All they have left is fame, but together we can build wealth and fame forever. This is a fate that has been decided from the beginning. Britain is a hierarchical society in which royalty and nobility exist. You can tell a person's identity just by his accent. Nobles speak their own language and enjoy their own culture. It's an opportunity to grab fame and power beyond wealth. A whole new life will unfold. She said in a trembling voice. Fate has chosen you. You will have the power to lead the world. And that power will be passed on to our descendants. Among the descendants of the Meyer-Amschel Rothschilds were those with particularly strong intuition, and thanks to them the Rothschilds enjoyed more than 200 years of cinema. So, will my children have the same abilities as me? I remembered Chairman Im Jin-yong, who was arrested. He inherited the Seosung Group by mobilizing all kinds of illegalities such as convertible bonds and accounting fraud. The situation is similar for other chaebols, although there is a difference in degree. Everyone does whatever it takes to pass on everything to their children. The children of the king become kings, the children of the nobles become the nobles, and the children of the chaebol become the chaebols. In the meantime, Yeji has guided me in the right direction. Thanks to that, I was able to come this far. So what I can do is... I stopped at the sudden thought. What's wrong? Take you. She smiled and said. Is that a problem? You are the CEO and the majority shareholder with 80% of the shares. It happened because Take-you gave up his share and gave it to me. He also entrusted me with the CEO. If Take-you had seen me now, what would he have said? I don't know, maybe he slapped him in the back of the head and yelled at him to come to his senses? Under the hot sunlight of the southern country, Ellie smiled brightly at me. At dinner together, Take-you said something nonsense and Hyunju's older sister was angry with her face. Ellie looked at her and burst into laughter. Even then her eyes were on me. I remembered what I had heard from Take-you before. Seeing the future is definitely a great thing. But it doesn't determine my life. Ultimately, the choice is mine. The blurry world became clear again and I knew for sure what I wanted. I removed her hand that was holding mine. Thanks for the offer, but we will never get married. Her eyes fluttered wildly. What? I just cut it off. You said it a few times. I have a lover. There was a crack in her face for the first time. Are you going to give up everything for one woman? I have friends. My friend's sister too. I have a friend who will not be wasted even if I give everything, and there is a lover I want to spend the rest of my life with. There is my family in my life. I already have everything I want. Everything she suggested is meaningless to me, she said in a cold voice as if stinging. Do you think OTK company will continue to thrive? Does not matter. What did you say? It is natural for political power and capital power to check each other. If the monopoly is detrimental to the economy, it is right to disband. Even if it's an OTK company. What if you die? Have you thought about what that wealth would be like? I don't know what happens after I die. What should my child do well to have all of that? What I will leave behind is neither family nor money. If only there was one. I remembered the story she told me earlier. It was thanks to a loan from Gutenberg that Johann Fust was able to make a name for himself. Professor Kiran Mohan, who accurately predicted the big one, Nikolai Petrov, who developed the TWR, and Professor Haman Kim, who developed the OTK battery. They will go down in history as great men. If I were to be remembered as the person who helped them, wouldn't that be enough? That is the role of the investor. What future did you see? Now what if you don't follow your foresight? I don't know either. Well, it'll work out anyway, he said, looking at me. You will regret it. I smiled, looking at her. Do you know what happened to all the people who said that to me until now? Kong Jin, who got in the car he was driving and left. The old man in a wheelchair stared at him from the window. Can I send it to you like this? No worries. He learned a secret of the Rothschilds that no one knew. Of course, no matter where I say it, it will be treated as a conspiracy theory just like other stories. Grant Darrell Rothschild sighed. I don't have much time. Although he relied on modern medicine to sustain his life, he did not have much time left. Above all, the intuition that had guided him until now was gradually dissipating. Now we are just waiting for the time to burn the last flame. What will be left after the flame burns? He has led the family through extreme changes since World War II. The Rothschilds continued to grow and prosper despite the decline of powerful European families. The fallen live on the glories of the past, but Rothschild's films are still alive today. However, the limit was getting closer and the world started to change again. Grace Rothschild smiled faintly. No one can defy fate. Britain is still struggling with the Brexit issue. The British all wanted to know how the matter would end, and so did the press. After coming to the UK, Jean Hu Kong did not comment on Brexit and avoided contact with the media. But that doesn't mean there's no way to know what he's thinking. In the first place, Jin Hu Kong came to the UK to discuss the relocation of AKIT's headquarters. The decision is made by the management, but it would not be wrong to say that the conclusion is ultimately Kong Jin Hu's opinion. Reporters gathered in front of the AKIT headquarters. Financial Times reporter Fortnum McCallan was one of them. The reporters chatted over coffee and, what is Jin Hu Kong going to do? We can move our entire corporation and headquarters to Europe, or we can just move the corporation and keep our headquarters here. What about just staying in England? If that's the case, I wouldn't have come in the first place. What will happen if AKIT leaves England? Then we should see a no-deal Brexit. It's the worst. What the hell is Prime Minister Kane thinking? He denounced May's deal as dumb and humiliating, and openly pushed for a no-deal Brexit. At this point, I'm not sure if this is a brinkmanship tactic to get what you want or if you just want to jump off the cliff. The EU has said that it will no longer reach an agreement like the EU and that there will be no more delays in Brexit. For now, there was no way out. The question is how far the impact of a no-deal Brexit will go. IBs were concerned about uncertainty, and capital was already leaving the UK. More than £1 trillion of assets have already flown abroad. It's not just assets that are declining. Jobs disappeared along with money, and young people who could not find a job left the UK and went to Europe and the US. McCallan clicked his tongue. How the hell did Britain become like this? Jin Hu Kong also visited the British branch of Golden Gate in the City of London to meet with the branch manager and management. Golden Gate also declined to comment on the current situation. When Jin Ho Kong announced that he would hold a press conference at the Akit headquarters with CEO Peter Kazuyo after the meeting, the stock price and the pound fluctuated. It's not even a riot because of one person after the earthquake. The reason may be that the influence of the earthquake is large, but the reason may be more that the British financial industry has become vulnerable to external shocks. Reporters waiting outside rushed into the building. The BBC stopped regular broadcasting and sent an emergency live broadcast. The British stopped what they were doing for a while and watched the broadcast. The eyes of the British were focused on the mouth of the young Korean. Jin Ho Kong said briefly, "Arkit stays in London." At that, the reporters breathed a sigh of relief involuntarily. "Do you have any questions?" The reporters all raised their hands and Kong Jin-ho pointed to one of them. McKellen stood up and asked, "Do you think a no-deal Brexit is unlikely to happen?" Then Kong Jin-ho shook his head. "I've been curious about it for a long time, so why are you asking me that?" "Yes," Jin Ho Kong said to the camera. "Brexit was decided by the British. Whether or not there is a no-deal Brexit will be decided by the British. The Brexit vote is already over, but a no-deal Brexit is still going on. The future of England is not in my mouth but in your hands. If you don't want the worst to happen, you just have to act so it doesn't happen." When I got out of Incheon International Airport and came out, the car was waiting. Taekyu drove directly to the airport to meet him. I got in the car. "What about my present? Does it look like you went out to play?" Taekyu set the destination home and turned on the autonomous driving mode and looked at me and asked, "What is a Rothschild?" The reason I went to the airport was probably because I was curious. I told the facts I found out at the Rothschild mansion, and as expected, Taekyu showed great interest. "These guys did a lot with their foresight. 'Cause I knew that. Why did she drip fate on you? She must have needed me that much." "Exactly, it's the foresight that I have. This ability is greater than I thought." "Yeah, even so, isn't that intuition that great?" "Well, Meyer Amsel Rothschild's foresight helped create the Rothschild family today. Looking at the Korean chaebol, there are not a few places where the founders went bankrupt after retirement. Recently, the Jumo Group and the GH Group are also collapsing. The Rockefeller, Carnegie, and Vanderbilt families, where the founders made huge fortunes, are also losing their prestige as the generations go by. Nevertheless, the Rothschilds' descendants have carried on the legacy for more than 200 years and developed it further. It's amazing. Marry and form a commonwealth on the island. That's a good idea. Then will it become OTK Island? I hope you don't do it like that. The name of the country is no joke. That's when I saw Yeji. What did you see?" Hearing this, Taekyu opened his mouth wide in surprise. "Really? So what happens? Is it out of wit, or is it that whatever you do it will eventually happen?" "I do not know. Either way, I will marry Ellie." Taekyu chuckled. "Great. So that's my friend. I thought he would say something like this. Anyway, it was an opportunity to become a black man that dominates the global financial world. Isn't it worth it? Did I make a big mistake? Or you don't want to marry me? If you had accepted her offer, would it have really happened?" I shook my head. "Not at all. After all, you are still eating well and living well. Do you want to see her again in the future?" "That is unknown. Rothschild is a huge financial group and she holds key positions within her family. Is she going to be a chief human resources officer, CHO, for a company? The financial world is surprisingly narrow. If we stay on this floor, won't we meet again?" I sat in the lobby of the Golden Gate building and waited for it to be time for work. Several of the passing staff have carefully asked for autographs. After a while, Eli, who had finished his work, came down. Her black trousers, blouse, and brunette hair were neatly tied. Although he is usually bubbly, he is astute when working. We hadn't seen each other for a few days, but somehow it felt like we had been apart for a long time. "You must be tired from the plane ride, so why didn't you come home?" "I want to see you." At my words, Ellie smiled. "Shall we go have dinner together?" Okay. We got into the car and Ellie talked about what she had been up to for days. As soon as I left the Jinhu press conference, the British stock market and the pound rebounded. The prospect of a no-deal Brexit has also increased. Despite the opposition of the Prime Minister, the Conservative Party requested an urgent discussion from the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and the debate and vote will be held the next day. That's fortunate. I remember the first time I met Ellie. The sight of her walking into the hotel coffee shop was vivid as if it had happened yesterday. At that time I felt boyish in a short cut. Now she has grown her hair a lot, giving off a very feminine atmosphere. Either way is pretty though. It's her face that I've seen every day for many years, but she's still pretty even now, and her heart is pounding when she sees it. One day this ability that came into existence gave me a lot. But the most precious thing among them is that he allowed me to meet Ellie. What good is she, no matter how much money she has, if she doesn't have a loved one? It's not like you're holding the money in bed. Ellie asked me, "What shall we eat? Is there anything you want to eat?" At that moment words came out without me knowing. "Are we going to get married?" Ellie paused for a moment then smiled. "What all of a sudden?" "Oh no. Just what?" Fortunately it was an atmosphere of accepting it like a joke. After all, is it right to officially hold me for this kind of talk? I breathed a sigh of relief inwardly. After all, I almost proposed to you while driving. For a while she didn't say anything. She turned her gaze to the side and Ellie turned her head to look out her window. She couldn't see what she was thinking because she couldn't see her expression. An awkward silence lingered in her car. There. Then suddenly a squeaking sound was heard. When she turned her head, Ellie was crying. I was surprised, so I quickly exited the autonomous driving mode and parked the car on the shoulder. "What's wrong?" Then Ellie burst into tears. "Huh. What is it really? What are you doing all of a sudden?" "Sorry. It's okay." "Think so." Eli cried and cried. "How long have I waited for you to say that?" "Yes." "Ugh, but Jean, who doesn't seem to have much thought about getting married, and it feels like she's going somewhere far away." "Did I?" "Sigh, people are talking about breaking up soon." "Ah." Every time an article about us is posted, there are not one or two people who comment like that on the internet. "We'll break up sooner or later, we'll break up already, we'll never get married, we'll get divorced soon after we get married, etc." I don't know why people are so interested in other people's relationships. Still, she never thought that Ellie would be so anxious all this time. Because she didn't have any sympathy for that either. Perhaps she showed it, but did I not notice? Then didn't she talk? Hey, I mean, it just seemed like a burden. It took her time to confess and it took her time to propose. Seeing this, am I really indecisive? I pat Ellie's back. "I am so sorry that I am late." Ellie struggled to laugh. "Shut up, it's okay. Because I told you right now." So cute that I can't stand it, and I laughed out loud. "So what is the answer?" "Yes." "Yes." Ellie hugged me and kissed her. Passers-by on her way glanced at her, but she didn't care. After a moment, Ellie, who stopped her crying, bowed her head slightly in embarrassment, wiping her tears away. Her shy look is also cute. "Then what should we do now?" Well. It's my first proposal, so I don't know." As I was passing the luxury street, I saw shops lined up on both sides of the road. I pointed to a jewelry store among them. "The order seems to have changed, but shall we buy the ring first?" Ellie nodded her head vigorously. "Good. Who should be the first to tell this news?" I called Take You and headed straight to the Namsan Salon Hotel. At dinner together, my mother slapped me on the back with her palm. "Ouch. Why are you hitting me? What do you do when a rich kid proposes like that?" I'm really ashamed of my mother. Be sure to do it right again later. Okay. I see. Her mother is desperate for joy and she holds Ellie's hand tightly. It's been like that until now, but I'll take good care of our Jinhu from now on. Ellie spread her shoulders and nodded her head vigorously. Sir. Do not worry. Jinhoo will take responsibility no matter what happens, so you don't have to worry. Isn't this what a normal man should do? Her mother was proud of her with an expression on her face that she had a reliable daughter-in-law. When I got home from dinner, Taekyu congratulated me. Congratulations. Finally, my friend has become a married man. Huh. Not yet. But soon it will be. There are only a couple of things you need to prepare to get married. You will also have to do a face-to-face meeting. A thin ring was placed on the ring finger of Eli's left hand. She bought it from a Tiffany store on Luxury Street. When we entered, the staff were startled. Even the manager came out to explain and even took out products that were not on display and showed them. The original ring had to be ordered separately according to the size. But fortunately there was a coupling of the right size in the store, so I was able to buy it right away. After washing and lying on her bed, Ellie continued to smile at her ring, with the back of her hand outstretched. I'll buy you a prettier one next time. I like this. It's the first ring Jinhoo bought. Had I known she would like it this much, she would have bought it sooner. I thought I knew why Ellie was feeling anxious all the time. When we live together, there are things we get to know each other without saying anything. Perhaps she had a vague feeling that I was hiding something from a long time ago. If you're not going to lie for the rest of your life, you should tell me. I scratched my head. Actually, she has something to tell Ellie. How am I supposed to explain this? And when Ellie hears her, how will she react? When she saw my expression, Ellie asked me. I don't know what it is, but when she says that, does she trust me? Yeah. Do you need some mental preparation? Well, that's right. She smiled brightly and hugged me. That's it. Let's talk about it after the wedding. Are you okay though? Of course. I will wait until then. Just because we decided to get married, nothing changed immediately. Going to bed together, waking up together, eating together is the same thing. But it felt like we were definitely closer than before. As the day dawned, we all headed to Golden Gate to report to Ellie's boss. Read more at wuxiax.com. We decided to get married. Hyunju's older sister, who was looking at her report, asked while taking off her glasses. Are you pregnant? Ellie shook her head. No. Taekyu crossed his arms and said. Do you know that everyone in the world is like you? Hyunju's older sister gave her impression and threw her report at Taekyu. She thought she was going to get scolded. Are you really getting married? You can't change the word later. Of course. Hyunju's sister picked up her intercom and connected her in-house broadcast. I would like to inform the employees of the Golden Gate Korean branch. Eli Kim, head of the first legal team, decided to marry OTK company CEO Kang Jinhoo. Congratulations to everyone. As soon as the words were finished, applause and cheers erupted as if the company was leaving. And 10 minutes later, the same reaction came from the OTK company building. Breaking news: CEO of OTK company, surprise marriage announcement. The other party is currently living together as the head of the Golden Gate legal team. How will this marriage affect the Korean economy? To one who has worked as a best model. The media poured out articles and foreign media also covered them as breaking news. After the article was published, the internet heated up. Hey, must be the wedding of the century. I think I'll just play without getting married after Kongjin. You idiot. There are a lot of young and pretty girls in the world. If it were me, I would break up with her girlfriend and meet everyone. Haha, there are people like that and there are people like that. It's not easy to meet someone you love in life. Don't miss it and don't regret it, grab it while it's there. I can't do that, so I'm still alone. After all, it's time to play. I also want to meet a girl like that because I earn a lot of money. You two get along well. And be happy face. Good love, happy face. If you get married after Kang Jinhoo, won't there be a Face It discount event? Who is coming to the wedding? Will Ronald, Zhang Pinghua and Vysotsky all come? Haha, the wedding venue, the summit of the great powers. It's an automatic summoning by Chongmin Hyo. Send a wedding invitation to your excellency who is in the detention center in a humane way. I only eat bean rice every day, but once at a wedding buffet is fine. I received congratulatory calls from all sides. There was also a call from the White House. Ronald said with a smirk. Congratulations. Do you know what is the most important thing in marriage? It's my first time, so I don't know. For reference, he has been married 3 times. In the wedding industry, this is enough to be considered a professional among pros. What advice can I get from him? This is a prenuptial contract. The part of the alimony for divorce should be clearly stated so that there will be no problems later. So, when I divorced my ex, I paid only the alimony I set in advance and ended it neatly. Be sure to keep this in mind. Teaches very good things. The wedding is scheduled to take place next spring. Her location hasn't been decided yet, and she's thinking of going in Hong Kong or Singapore. If I added a little exaggeration to my wedding news, the whole world shook. Excluding Korea and the United States, China and the United Kingdom are particularly interested. The reason is that Ellie is a dual citizen of Hong Kong and the UK. I wonder what China has to do with this, but the Chinese think that Hong Kong is, of course, a part of China. Even the People's Daily and the Global Times specified Ellie as Chinese from Hong Kong. Anyway, she's advocating for a country, so it's not wrong. In the Kremlin, President Vysotsky directly called, and in Zhongnanhai, Commerce Director Li Sui was contacted. He spoke kindly as if nothing had happened before. Congratulations on your marriage, President. I think this marriage will further enhance the friendly relationship between OTK Company and China. I don't know if there was enough friendly relationship between us. Anyway, I can't say anything to congratulate you. We are not going to give up on the Chinese market in the future. Thank you. I feel like I spent 10 hours on the phone even though I was just congratulated and said hello. You don't have to worry about gathering guests. Aren't you supposed to invite Jin Yong Lim to the wedding too? Do you know when it will come out? The first trial is currently in progress, but it is expected that it will take some time for the verdict to be delivered because the case is so complicated that only one document is needed. A lawyer for Seosong Group is arguing that the arrest is unfair, referring to the revelations of investigator Shin Jong-hoon. Do I really have to go to a visit with a wedding invitation? The British House of Representatives held an urgent debate on Brexit, and the House of Commons then voted on a resolution in favour of extending the Brexit deadline. Despite the opposition of Prime Minister Kane, the ruling party voted in favour, and it was passed with 555 votes, more than 80% of the total. That is, the brakes have been put on a no-deal Brexit. Of course, the EU did not know if this would be accepted, but the atmosphere was that Britain took a breath. I remember Grace Rothschild. She was hoping for a no-deal Brexit. He must have been thinking of taking advantage of the turmoil in the financial market to make a profit. So, what do you think about this situation? Well, you'll figure it out. I decided to stop paying attention to other people's affairs and focus on my country's affairs. In Semanjium, the largest since Dangun New Town Development Project is in progress. The domestic economy, which has been stagnant for a while, is reviving as a catalyst. Evaluation agencies all raised Korea's economic growth rate at once. But it was not without problems. Usually, when domestic demand rises and the economic growth rate rises, real estate prices tend to fluctuate. However, Korea declined. There are 2 main reasons. One is because it has risen too much, and the other is because it was expected that some of the population in the metropolitan area would escape when Semanjium was developed. When the supplementary budget was passed, house prices in Seoul also turned to a downward trend. But self-proclaimed real estate experts were confident that Seoul would drop a little and then rebound. But what is this? After that, a serious decline began. The final blow was Assemblyman Lee Jong-hae. She started selling the Seochogu apartment she owned in her husband's name. As soon as her hearings were over, she sold a whopping 6. When she asked reporters about this, Representative Lee Jong-hae said that she had to sell her husband's business because she urgently needed money, but no one believed her. She was not the only politician who sold or offered to sell her house. Politicians have been the vanguard of real estate speculation. As soon as the news became known, real estate agents began to pour in a lot of properties. Recently, house prices in the metropolitan area have been on an upward trend. If the house price rises too high, you will have to pay a transfer tax of hundreds of millions of won, so it is better to own it. If you have to raise the property tax by 10 million won, the house price will rise by 100 million won anyway, so it's worth the patience. No matter how expensive it is, as long as the price continues to rise, many people will buy it. However, the opposite happens when the decline is in full swing. As the profit from the sale is given, the transfer tax decreases and the burden of the holding tax increases. When the price falls, the number of buyers is bound to decrease. The reason why a transaction is made is because the seller thinks it is expensive and the buyer thinks it is cheap. There is no fool to sell a house today, knowing that it will go up by 100 million tomorrow. On the other hand, there is no fool to buy a house today, knowing that 100 million will fall tomorrow. When apartment prices went up by hundreds of millions of won, the media, who didn't say much, poured out articles all at once as they fell by tens of millions of won. Seoul apartment transaction plummeting. House price decline due to national land shortage development. The damage is shared by the common people. Real estate stagnation hit the economy hard. Lease businesses who bought houses with the trust of the government, complaining about the development of Simanjeom. The fall in house prices threatens the stability of housing for the common people. Mr. Kim, a 30-year-old office worker, gets troubled by falling house prices when he wakes up. Taekyu was worried as well. Mr. Kim, an office worker in our 30s, is dealing with all the disasters that happen in Korea today by himself. Who the hell is this person? Call me and ask. I'm curious too. But why do the media worry so much when real estate goes down? The reason is, of course, that they live on advertisements from construction companies, not the love of viewers and subscribers. That's why it makes sense when you look at the argument. The government should take special measures, boldly loosen loan restrictions and stimulate the real estate market, raise the floor area ratio for reconstruction and redevelopment, adjust the development rate of Simanjeom, and so on. This article is interesting. Take a look. I was handed the tablet that Taekyu had offered. The only assets they have accumulated throughout their lives are an elderly couple living in one house, unable to sleep because of their old age. Strategy: all they have is an apartment in Apgujeong with a view of the Han River. However, when the comprehensive real estate tax bomb was not enough and even the house price fell by 300 million won, I couldn't sleep at night. This house is the only property of the old couple. Therefore, the decline in house prices is inevitably fatal in old age. Syncopation. Kim, in her 70s, lamented and said at the end of the interview, "What would a chaebol like Kong Jin-woo know about commoners like us in Apgujeong who have only one house?" Hundreds of comments followed the article. If it rises by 1 billion in 3 years and then falls by 300 million, isn't it actually 700 million times? Am I the only one who doesn't understand this? Haha, Apgujeong apartment with a view of the Han River. It's 3 billion down from 3 billion. Should I worry about this? I'm curious as to how much money the Jureji who wrote this has. Don't swear like that. He is a person with a warm heart who cares for people who have 3 billion even though he doesn't have 300 million. Can't we sell the house? You're talking nonsense. Are you telling me to leave the house I've lived in all my life? If you don't have money, you have to move. If I go to another area with that money, I'll buy a penthouse. Ah, that's easy to say. Then why are you arguing about the high price of a house in Seoul? If I lived in the mountains of Gangwon-do, I wouldn't buy a house there for 100 million won. Who wants to move to another town? All you have to do is sell your house, get monthly rent or jaunts and spend the rest of the money and live happily ever after. Or apply for a home pension. If you're going to keep sitting on it, what old-fashioned asset is that? If you say that you won't sell the house even if you die of starvation, it doesn't matter if the house price drops by 200 million won or goes up by 2 billion won. Rather, if the property tax falls by 200 million won, we should thank Kong Jin-hu. It is true that real estate taxes are too high right now. Even if you live on 30 Pyeong in Gangnam, you have to pay 10 million won every year. Insurance premiums also go up here. However, can't we have the same property tax for a $100 million house and a $1 billion house? After that, they will say that they live in a house worth 50 billion won and eat only ramen noodles because they don't have money to pay taxes. Everyone. This is all because of Kang Jin-hu. Let's protest in front of OTK company. It's not just that the people of the country are raging over house prices. I picked up the intercom with a sudden thought. Please bring me some data related to debt. I looked at the materials that Yuri had organized and brought. No asset goes up forever, never goes down. Sometimes it rises, sometimes it falls, and sometimes it rises when it falls. However, it is true that the recent surge has not been serious. Last year alone, house prices in the metropolitan area rose by nearly 10%. 10% might seem like a no-brainer, but it's an average of all the houses in the area. Apartments with actual transactions rose by tens of percent. If the price of a house that used to be 1 billion won is 2 billion won, then it goes back to 1 billion won. It doesn't end with returning to the way it was. If the self that has skyrocketed in a short period of time plummets, the aftereffects are considerable. If this really happens, people will go bankrupt. The problem is debt. Read more at wuxiax.com. Currently, Korea's household debt stands at 1,700 trillion won, which has long since surpassed GDP. This means that even if you pour out all the goods produced in Korea in 1 year, you will not be able to repay the debt. Taeyong narrowed his eyes. If that's enough, even if I sell OTK company, I can't pay it back. It is impossible to be free from debt while conducting economic activities. As the economy grows, the money supply increases and debt increases. But it was too fast. Over the past few years, household debt has risen by more than 10% annually. Considering that the economic growth rate during this period was 3 to 4%, it more than doubled compared to the size of the economy. Everyone borrowed a lot. Why did you borrow so much money? Because interest rates are low. Whether you borrow 100 million won when the interest rate is 4% or 200 million when the interest rate is 2%, the interest burden is the same. Because of this, you and I borrowed money. This situation is similar to other countries, but Korea's household debt problem is particularly serious. Real estate prices around the world plummeted during the global financial crisis triggered by subprime mortgage loans. However, Korea's rate of rise was smaller than that of advanced countries, and the extent of its decline was also smaller than that of advanced countries, thanks to prior regulations on lending such as LTV and DTI. Developed countries, including the United States, have gone through the deleveraging process to adjust their debt, but Korea avoided it. Then, as liquidity overflowed due to low interest rates, debt continued to increase. Household debt rose as house prices rose, and house prices rose because household debt rose. Instead of catching it, the government, which had been continuously fanning it, came up with a belated and hasty plan to block the loan, but it was too late. Debt needs more debt. When an apartment is 500 million won, it is 50 million won if it rises 10%. But if it increases 10% when it is 1 billion won, it is 100 million even if apartment prices rise only about the average of the previous year, the actual increase will double. And to buy it you have to take out more loans. The government announced that the rate of debt growth is slowing, but this is close to an optical illusion caused by an increase in absolute amounts. Still, thanks to good loan regulation, house prices will not fall below the loan amount, but a blow is inevitable for those who bought a house late. So, isn't that why everyone is protesting in front of the company? Hundreds of demonstrators gathered in front of the company, holding banners and demonstrating. Okay. It can be. I decided to do that now. In a democratic country, it would be natural to express one's opinion. The problem is the government's response. Will this fall be an opportunity for a soft landing or As house prices fell in earnest and landlords' dissatisfaction increased, the politicians took action. The government has begun to appease landlords by increasing loans to homeless people and end users, easing regulations on reconstruction and redevelopment, and reconsidering the reality of publicly announced prices. So far, population dispersion in the metropolitan area has been virtually ineffective. The same is true of Sejong City, which has raised expectations. Although it claims to be an administrative complex city and relocates a large number of state institutions, it is of no use. However, despite the fact that Simanjam has not yet announced the sale plan, it has had a definite effect. Currently, the first 200,000 households will be sold in the second half of next year, and thereafter 100,000 households will be sold every year. If all goes according to plan, a new city on the scale of a metropolitan city will be created with more than 1 million inhabitants. Considering that Sejong City has a population of about 300,000, it is 3 times larger than that. As well as corporations and factories, the nation's largest resort complex, theme park, Silvertown International School and Korea University's second campus will be built to become a fully self-sufficient city. With the fact that a new city that can replace the metropolitan area is being built in a situation where end users have already risen to the point where it is impossible to buy, house prices have begun to fall sharply. There is no one in the world who will like my house price falling. Even more so if you are someone who has bought several houses with debt. Korea has a unique residential culture where a significant number of people live in apartment complexes. Already, the women's associations and neighborhood associations in each complex were in an uproar, which put pressure on politicians in the form of public opinion. As the landlords strongly protested, the members of the Liberal National Party jumped on board and raised their voices in the metropolitan area. We must come up with a solid support plan for the common people who own one house. As retirees with no income and the elderly are feeling the burden of increased taxes, consider reducing the tax burden on end users and regular residents. We will continue the struggle until a proper government countermeasure comes out. Representative Ma Sang-tae suddenly said that he would shave his head, condemning the failure of the government's real estate policy and calling for countermeasures. In the midst of the homeowners' gathering, Senator Ma State shaved his head as if to say goodbye. The shaved heads of opposition lawmakers spread like a lantern, centered around lawmakers in the metropolitan area. The conservatives fervently supported it, calling it a haircut struggle. Yoon Nak-young, the leader of the Liberal People's Party who had been living for a while after the economic hearing, came to the scene and encouraged her to shave. She hugged her shaved senators and shouted in tears, "Our party will continue to shave off the relay until we come up with a clear solution for the common people who own houses and the common people in the rental business." So far it's been good. Then sparks caught her and suddenly moved to her. Her host, who was broadcasting her shaved head live on her A-tube, said to her, pushing her mic, "Next time Seo Yoon Nak-young, please shave your hair." At that, Seo Yoon Nak-young was taken aback. "Yes. Am I? That's right. The leader of the first opposition party needs to shave his head to show his determination." The supporters gathered at the haircut ceremony chanted her name in unison. "Nak-young Yoon. Yoon Nak-young." Seo Yoon Nak-young only smiled awkwardly with a bewildered expression. The controversy over Seo Yoon Nak-young's haircut grew bigger and bigger. There was even a petition from the Blue House to the Blue House in support of Seo Yoon Nak-young's haircut, and more than 100,000 people agreed. Everyone, both conservative and progressive, seemed to want Seo Yoon Nak-young to shave. Seo Yoon Nak-young, who had been avoiding answering reporters' questions for a while, said she had no choice but to do it. "I will make a comprehensive judgment about when and how to make a decision in terms of maximizing the meaning of the struggle," she said. "No, what's so great about shaving? Do you think it's comprehensive? If anyone hears it, you'll think it's a robbery. I'm trying hard to get back what I said I won't do." As much as she voted in favor of the Simanjam development at the hearing, it's right to shave it together. even at the level of responsibility. Representative Yun Nak-young. Please shave your head to show the determination of the opposition party. If you shave your head, you will support the LDP from today. I will also join the LDP as a member. Why do you support the LDP? I have to support the National Party. Even if you can't wear split clothes, you should shave your head. The hair grows back anyway. If you shave Yun Nak-young, you will receive a rice cake award from the Liberty Korea Party. Shaved Gaza. Taekyu looked at the article and said, "What the hell is this shaving? If I shave, will the falling house price go up? You shouldn't try to find meaning in what politicians are doing." Seo Nak-young swung her words around, biting her OTK company. It all started with the development of Simangium, so OTK company, the main agent, is also responsible. The landlords are also holding a protest in front of the company calling for countermeasures. Of course, there is no reason to follow. Just because the house price goes up, it's not going to give me the same amount as the increase. Taeyong put his hand on my shoulder. There is only one way out of this. You're going to shave your head too. I was surprised. Why me? What the hell am I? Taekyu called the head of the PR team and said, "First, if CEO Yun Nak-young clearly shows his determination, announce that we will make a comprehensive decision." At that, team leader Jong Ki-hong was surprised. "Yes. Are you really announcing that?" Taekyu said with anticipation. "I want to see Seo Yun Nak-young shave her head. Is that okay?" "It's okay. I wouldn't do it anyway." After the announcement of OTK Company's vice president, Nak-young Yun, CEO of OTK Company, could not back down any longer. At the reporter's questions, she shouted with determination, "We will have a shave in front of the OTK Company headquarters." Amid the crowds of protesters and supporters, Representative Yun Nak-young sat in a chair and wrapped a haircut. The very moment when the assistant picks up the barricade and pushes his head. "No, sir. Can't we put that barricade down right now?" Her fellow lawmakers rushed in with an awkward motion and took the barricade. And the party members surrounded Representative Yun Nak-young as if it had been squeezed. "Before we shave Seo Yun Nak-young, shave our heads first. No one can touch the CEO's hair with a single finger." Seo Yun Nak-young told them. "I know what you mean, but I can't break my resolve. Come on, shave my head." "It can't be. You have to find another way. How come you don't listen to our voices?" Representative Yun Nak-young and fellow lawmakers had a quarrel with each other as they shaved, and a sea of tears unfolded. Seo Yun Nak-young wiped her tears and said as if there was nothing she could do. She said, "Since many people are against this, we have no choice but to stop the shave ceremony today. But I will not stop here. I will continue the struggle to the end." Wow. Nak-young Yun Nak-young. Just like that, the show was about to end, but an employee from the OTK Company headquarters came out and spoke. "You seem to be having a hard time because of the commotion, so the deputy chief says you can shave your head in the lobby. The internet has been hot for a while because of this." The deputy chief is crazy. He decides to fuck Yun Nak-young. What the hell are you doing? Haha, Yun Nak-young is also really great. In the end, I didn't shave until the end and went home. I thought you wouldn't. Marley looked awkward with the facial expressions of lawmakers and her supporters. Do some practice beforehand. After all, it's easy to shave someone else's hair, but it's not easy to shave yourself. Everyone's hair is precious. But why are you encouraging other lawmakers to shave their heads? That's not your hair. A man's shaved head and a woman's shaved have different meanings. Can the first opposition party leader only raise the falling house price by taking care of himself like this? Taekyu said as if he was sorry. You just have to push yourself from home. Why the hell do you want to shave your head like that? I continued to scan the material. In most developed countries, the ratio of real estate to financial assets is less than 50%. Even in Japan, which is known to like real estate, the level is about 60%. However, in Korea this ratio is over 80%. In other words, The assets of all people depend on real estate. This means that when house prices fall, it is fatal to household assets. So, even a few months ago, the government, which had promised to raise house prices in the metropolitan area, hastily changed its attitude. The downtrend has stalled to see if the various stimulus measures have had some effect. First, the government eased loan restrictions for homeless people. They want to borrow more money so they can buy a house. However, this again leads to an increase in household debt. After that, next year I'm going to shoot 2,000 trillion won. Now that interest rates are cheap, there is no problem. It is highly likely that the BOK will cut interest rates once more in the near future. A decrease of 0.5% when the interest rate is 5% reduces the interest burden by 10%, but a decrease of 0.5% when the interest rate is 2% reduces the interest burden by 25%. The problem is that when you go up, the opposite happens. Under the current circumstances, even a 2% increase in interest rates would double the interest burden. If you have to pay 1 million won a month in interest and then 2 million won in interest, can you survive? Isn't it enough to pay off the debt little by little? It's not that easy. Money is easy to borrow but difficult to repay. One of the two is to pay off debt. Increase your income or sell your assets. Again, in recent years, household debt has more than doubled the rate of economic growth. Considering that income increases with economic growth, it is unreasonable to pay off debt with income. In the end, the house has to be sold, and if everyone thinks so and pours out the property, the house price will fall again. The subprime mortgage crisis occurred as house prices fell below the value of collateral, causing serious financial insolvency. However, this is unlikely because Korea has good lending regulations. Considering the fundamentals of the Korean economy, it is good to say that there is no possibility that house prices will be cut in half. I don't know if the shock of the IMF foreign exchange crisis will hit. I was going to eat quietly, but when Jin Ho-kong grabbed the microphone, the atmosphere changed. After lunch, a serious conversation followed. I got up and said, Simanjeom is a high-tech city where everything is automated. Considering the expected power consumption, it is difficult to meet the demand with the current reserve power. I requested the construction of the TWR, but there is nothing to say yet, except that it is under review. In order not to cause any problems in the future, we need to start construction right now. The TWR to be built in Simanjeom will be built in partnership with Rosatom and KMP. In this process, you can naturally acquire TWR technology and operational know-how. The waste fuel rods generated from the existing nuclear power plants can be recycled, so it is one stone and two birds. Everyone agrees on the need, but since the current government is promoting a policy to phase out nuclear power, officials expressed their reluctance to construct additional nuclear power plants. President Ha Chong-min said with a smile, I understand that the TWR has not yet been tested for operational issues or safety. It is natural, because we're just building a commercial nuclear reactor. TWR is not a completely new technology, it is an evolution of existing nuclear reactors. The stability has already been sufficiently verified through experiments, and it is currently under construction in Kaliningrad. If there was a problem with safety, neighboring countries would have opposed it sooner. President Ha Chong-min nodded slowly. We will review that part together with renewable energy so that we can decide whether to proceed. I made up my mind and continued. Regulations related to driverless trucks also need to be reviewed. Due to the current shortage of drivers, materials are not transported on time, which often delays the delivery. In addition, 2 or 3 accidents a day occur due to drowsy driving and inexperienced driving. Driverless trucks are already being used in California restoration projects and have not caused any problems so far. We are closely reviewing that part in consideration of the labor market turmoil. The same goes for modular homes and 3D printers for construction. There have been many new construction methods in the construction field, but they are not being used properly due to regulations. I would like some restrictions to be lifted even in Simanjeom. President Ha Chong-min's expression hardened more and more, and the Blue House officials did not know what to do. Does that mean that regulations should be loosened at the convenience of businesses? I shook my head. No. Regulations should not be applied according to the convenience of the government. There are too many things that cannot be used only in Korea for technologies that are used well in foreign countries. If you can't know about safety and side effects because you've never done it before and say you can't do it because you don't know about safety and side effects, what's the use of developing a new technology? After the meeting, I met President Ha Chong-min separately. Compared to the last time I saw him, his face was not very good, and his wrinkles seemed to have deepened. It is said that politics makes you old, and it seems that the saying is correct. Actually, there was a lot of work in between. He didn't feel any tension even though the two of them were face to face. Rather, it felt comfortable. He drank his tea and brought out his talk. I heard you are getting married. Yes. Haha, having a family is a good thing. My heartfelt congratulations. Thank you. Of course, I wouldn't have set up a place to talk like this. What does he want from me? He is probably the power to control capital power. That's why he arrested Chairman Im Jin-yong, investigated offshore tax evasion, and put pressure on businessmen. What do you think about the Korean economy now? I do not know. It must be seen as a crisis. I added a word. To be precise, there has never been a single moment without a crisis. Korea's economy has been through all kinds of hardships and adversity as much as its twisted modern and contemporary history. Nevertheless, they overcame those crises well and have barely reached the threshold of a developed country. Of the countries with a population of 50 million or more, there are only 7 countries in the world with a national income of more than $30,000. While other countries were originally developed countries to the extent that they were Allied powers or Axis powers, Korea has come this far from the ruins of war. The poorest country, which once depended on aid from each country, has grown into an economic power that can stand shoulder to shoulder with the great powers. Can be said that it is truly a miracle. But it is still too early to be reassured. Industrial change, economic growth slowing, and population aging are not the only problems. If you don't react properly, there's no way you can't fall from here again. Besides, isn't there a problem with North Korea? They fired another missile a few days ago. Unlike other countries, South Korea has an enemy country armed with nuclear weapons right next to. From the South Korean perspective, it is a problem whether North Korea collapses or not. The most ideal scenario would be to develop the economy through reform and opening up little by little while maintaining the government. President Ha Chong-min said as if asserted. North Korea will embark on a path of change. As one economist said, the biggest mistake in predicting the future is reflecting hope. The expression on the president's face was not very good at my words. It is President Ha Chong-min's hope that North Korea will give up its nuclear weapons and start economic development. In order to make that hope a reality, he implemented a policy of appeasement, unlike his previous administration, and held 2 inter-Korean summits. The sight of the North Korean leader holding hands and shaking hands with the North Korean leader, who had been dripping in a sea of fire not so long ago, gave off an atmosphere as if economic cooperation was about to take place at any moment. However, no significant change has actually occurred. North Korea still has nuclear weapons and is still firing missiles into the East Sea if bored. Then what do you think will happen to North Korea? It's a hard question. I am no expert on North Korea. No country, no government likes inflation and asset appreciation, and no vice versa. Borrowing money is easy and enjoyable, but paying back borrowed money is difficult and painful. So what do you do if you can't pay off your debt? Simple. You have to pay debt again. It's like flipping a card. Answer. Even if your debt snowballs, it doesn't affect your life right away. The problem arises when you can no longer borrow money. When it is determined that the debtor is no longer in a situation where it is difficult to repay the debt, whether it be a person or the state, creditors try to recover the loaned money. Some countries have already tried to block it and it exploded. Argentina is seeking a bailout from the International Monetary Fund (IMF). Greece has received EU funding on condition of partial debt relief, and Italy is on the verge of bankruptcy. In the meantime, it's the price of spending other people's money. In the process of overcoming the financial crisis, the United States released an astronomical amount of money, and the money flowed into emerging countries which continued to increase asset values. And in the process, debt continued to grow. Currently, almost all countries are groaning in huge debt. China's government, corporate and household debts combined are more than 3 times its GDP, and Japan's national debt alone is 250% of GDP as of this year. If a problem arises in countries with large economies, the risk is highly likely to be contagious like dominoes. That's why rumors of a financial crisis keep coming out. There is no eternal boom, no assets that will go up forever. How long can this condition last? I woke up to the sound of rain. Ellie was lying on the bed, staring at the rain outside her window. I looked at her like that. After a while, Ellie turned her head and asked if she felt a sense of favor. "Are you awake? Why do you like rain so much?" "Just hearing the sound of rain makes me feel at ease." Ellie looked at me and asked, "But are we really getting married next year? Can't you believe it? Hey, do you know that people around you are already treating you as a married woman?" "Okay." Looking at her expression, she seems to like it somehow. "How many children will you have?" Well, she hadn't even thought about it until now. "If you say, can't you? 1 person." At my words, Ellie poked her lips slightly. "Maybe it's wrong?" "What do you mean?" 3 should be born." "Yes. Wouldn't it be difficult to raise 3? Does Jinhoo like sons or daughters?" I thought for a moment, then she answered, "I think she would like a daughter. She is a daughter who resembles Ellie. She looks so cute just thinking about it. Why? I think it would be nice to have a son who looks like Jinhoo. It's because I don't know how many accidents I went through when I was younger. Fufu, I'll have to listen to my mother later." Ellie reached out and touched my face. "Jinhoo will be a good father." A business luncheon was held at the Blue House in relation to Simangium investment. About 20 presidents gathered at the Blue House. Everyone was smiling, but inside they were very nervous. Even the elderly Chaebol presidents held their breath. The reason was because of these 2 people. 2 major incidents in the business world are the arrest of Chairman Im Jin-yong and the resignation of CEO Eun Sung-cha of Chairman Chon Young-han. The former is related to President Ha Chong-min, and the latter is related to Kang Jin-hoo. How many of the CEOs of the Chaebol will not be dusted off? However, considering that good things are good, and that it has contributed to the economy, it ended with a probation. But I'm sure the head of the Seosong group will be arrested. It was no less shocking that Kang Jin-hoo obtained the silver car. Among the Chaebols, there was an implicit rule not to attack the management rights of the opposing group, even if it was a sibling rebellion. If we look at the cases of attacks on management rights so far, all of them were carried out by foreign capital. However, Jinhoo Kang stole the Eun-sung car, the core of the Eun-sung car group. Chon Young-han resigned without even being able to compete for a vote because the shareholders actually supported Jinhoo Kang. If the OTK company decides to buy stocks and attack the management right, where is the conglomerate that will survive? It would be fine for Seosong Group with a large market cap, but it would not be unheard of for other groups to swallow 1 or 2 affiliates if OTK company puts their mind to it. Either way, it's hard to see a good look if you hate it, so there was no way the president would be comfortable in his seat. After all, this is a place to eat and share blessings. The media captured the friendly atmosphere on camera. Even during the previous government, experts were arguing that North Korea would collapse at any moment. This too must have been a hope rather than a prediction. It must be one of the 2. Worse or better than it is now. Either way, you need to be prepared. How do you mean? Money does not solve all problems, but it solves many problems. If North Korea becomes worse than it is now, the regime could collapse. If we want to be better than we are now, we need to engage in economic development. Either the former or the latter requires huge amounts of money. Turning a crisis into an opportunity is only possible with money. Why did you refuse to report offshore assets yourself? I answered calmly. It's literally a voluntary report. It doesn't matter if you don't report it voluntarily, right? Even if the CEO is a Korean, the Korean government has no authority to say anything about foreign corporations. Considering the investment agreement with the US, it is impossible to legally enforce it. Read more at wuxiax.com. I think the position of CEO comes with great responsibilities and obligations. Isn't that the same as being president? Suddenly the air inside the room became heavy. In Korea, the power and authority of the president is absolute to the extent that there is a saying that the imperial presidential system exists. If it wasn't for him before he became president, no one would have spoken in front of him like this after that. My term of office is fixed, but the term of the president is not set. So, President Ha Chong-min put down his teacup and looked at me. Over time people change. That is why we need a systematic check-in mechanism. It is probably the knowledge and beliefs he has acquired in his past life. He worked as a human rights lawyer and fought the military regime. Not one or two of the colleagues I was with at that time turned away. Some became conservatives and praised the economic growth during the military regime, while others became a shogun and demanded the withdrawal of US forces from Korea. He also went from a lawyer to a member of the National Assembly, and from a member of the National Assembly to the president, so he can be said to have changed. It's good to have faith. Then he added a word. Unless you force it on others. His expression hardened at my words. I remembered Grace Rothschild's suggestion. If she had accepted her offer, she wouldn't have to stay here. I will take care of my work. I looked directly at President Ha Chong-min and continued to say, even though they have different views, they will agree that the Korean economy must keep moving forward. After all, people don't change easily. It will be the same for him and me. After a while, President Ha Chong-min opened his mouth. I understand what the president thinks. The conversation ended with this. I had a good cup of tea. Standing up, he asked one last time. Would it be okay to say that OTK Company is a Korean company? I answered without thinking long. It is meaningless to question the nationality of capital. If any company invested in Korea, wouldn't that be the case? I decided to meet a person at work. His name is Alan Everhart. That's Nicola's Sue. The history of Nikola is no less than the history of electric vehicles. At a time when automakers were passive about electric vehicles, Nikola made and introduced the highly efficient electric vehicle Model P to the market, which drew the interest of investors. Nikola, who succeeded in targeting the rich market with high-tech products, opened up the electric vehicle market in earnest by expanding the plant based on the funds earned and releasing the $30,000 Model TM. At this point, Carlos emerged as a competitor. Up until this point, investors and experts predicted that it would be difficult for Karas to defeat Nikola. However, with the development of OTK batteries, the situation changed. The OTK battery significantly improved the capacity and charging speed of the existing NCM battery, and completely changed the paradigm of electric vehicles. GM and Ford joined the Karas camp, but Nikola still insisted on survival. This is because the main car models are already tuned to the existing batteries, and they were procuring their own batteries through Gigaplant, a joint venture with Technics. Moreover, Gigaplant hedged against cobalt to ensure a stable supply of raw materials. It is a contract to buy a certain amount of cobalt at a certain amount for the next 5 years regardless of the price fluctuations. However, since the release of OTK batteries, the price of cobalt has plummeted by more than 70%. Thanks to this, other battery makers were able to secure price competitiveness, but Gigaplant had to bear the loss. A 101 bill has turned into 31. Is it a situation where you have to keep buying it for 101? When Karas released AD3 and AD4 equipped with OTK battery, Nikola's sales plummeted and stock price went downhill. Take You, who was listening to me, looked at me and said, "In the end, 90% is your responsibility." I shook my head. No. The last big one hit me. In fact, the time when big one came was the time when Nikola was increasing the production of Model TM, which can be called a cash cow. Due to big one, the Model TM plant in California was shut down due to damage to the production line, and the Giga plant in neighboring Nevada was also partially damaged. IT companies can resume work as long as servers and manpower are intact, but manufacturing has no answer when factories stop. In the end, Nikola and Giga plant went bankrupt. Currently, Nikola is in a workout and trading is suspended on the Nasdaq. According to media reports, it is known that Alan Eberhardt and I have a bad relationship. To be precise, I was still and he fought hard by himself. When Karas released an electric car, he mocked that it would go bankrupt within 3 years and become a lump of scrap metal. And when OTK batteries were first released, they criticized that an explosion would occur soon. And to me, who said that I had to prepare for big one, he poured double insults like a bastard and a madman. But the day will come when we will meet in person like this. Take You crossed his arms and said, It's like meeting a malicious commenter who has been persistently posting malicious comments in person. I hear it and it seems that way. It looks really gentle though. Originally, malicious commenters are all fine when they see their faces. If you know that Haeyoung is always malicious in webtoons, he must be a sincere office worker. How do you know that? Have you met him? No, what? Are you a malicious commenter? Take You groaned. What are you talking about? Who else cleans the internet space like me? It's even more suspicious to see him strongly denying. I shook hands with a white man who came to my office. You have worked hard to come a long way. This is Jin Hu Kong. Nice to meet you. This is Alan Everhart. Good morning. This is Take You O. He is tall and has cool features. Although he looks like an American, he was actually born in South Africa, after which he studied in the United States and started a business, obtaining American citizenship. The strength of America is that he can be accepted as an American if he has the ability to come from any country. Microsoft CEO Satya Shyamalan was also originally an Indian or American citizen. He is now only in his mid to late 40s. It's hard to believe that you've grown such a company at such a young age. He predicted the coming of the electric car era and founded Nikola and Solarland as he thought solar power was suitable as a way to charge electric vehicles. Then he realized the potential of space exploration and he founded the private space company SpaceX. In addition to this, he has a history of starting and selling several companies. It would have been difficult for an ordinary person to do even one. If you look at this, you can see that there are geniuses in the world. Contrary to the harsh words he said in the media interview, when I met him in person he was gentle. What did you come here for? Low in his seat he said calmly. I wondered who had ruined Nikola. Suddenly I wanted to see your face. Seeing you say this makes me feel like a geek. What would have happened if I didn't invest? So there was no Karas and no OTK batteries. So Nikola was still doing well, right? Nikola's once over GM. The market cap shrank to $5 billion after the workout. That's a drop of more than 90% from its peak. Automobile companies have a large number of employees and have a huge impact on the overall economy when they go bankrupt. Therefore, it is necessary to save it rather than let it perish as much as possible. We cannot ignore Nikola's brand value and accumulated know-how. In addition to electric vehicles, there are also charging systems called hyperchargers that are installed all over the world. If you can get it for just $5 billion, it looks pretty good, but there's one problem. That's over $10 billion in debt. It was thanks to the issuance of bonds and new stocks that Nikola was able to continue investing despite making huge losses every year. In the meantime, corporate bonds have been issued at interest rates of 5 to 7%, which is more than double that of U.S. Treasuries. The reason the interest rate is so high is because the issuance volume is so high and Nikola's financial situation was not very good. Although there is some risk, the growth has continued, so it has been in the spotlight among bond investors who like high returns. Had I known it was going to be this bad, no one would have bought it. There are $2 billion of bonds that have already expired and have not been repaid. And even now, bonds that have expired are coming back at a rate of $200 million every month. Acquisitions also include debt. Acquiring Nikola means that Nikola has to assume responsibility for repayment of bonds issued by Nikola. A company with a lot of debt can be taken over by mistake. For this reason, GM and Ford have no choice but to express their displeasure. But in this situation, one company raised its hand. "Did you say that you would like to take over from Zhou?" He nodded. "I know that I do not have enough money to pay compensation for various mergers and acquisitions in Keras, but I do not know where the money is going to take over." Taeyong just nodded his head. If anyone sees it, they will misunderstand that the Chinese government is providing the funds. What? If you ask me, I would say no. Naturally, concerns arose about technology leaks, and the U.S. Department of Commerce did not allow the merger or acquisition. Zhou must have been bored knowing it wouldn't work. As a result, creditors vehemently protested. From the creditor's point of view, if a company goes bankrupt, it doesn't matter if there is a technology leak or not, in the event that you can't get a single penny out of it. Eventually, the ball went to Carlos. The U.S. government secretly hinted that it would be good for Carlos to take over. Since Keras is doing the best in the automobile market, it seems that he is taking responsibility. Daryl Sagan considered the matter carefully. From Carlos's point of view, Nikola is not necessarily needed. But we can't let it go to Chinese companies. The government should also look into it. The acquisition cost is a problem, but fortunately, bond prices have plummeted. In the bond market, ratings below BB+ are usually treated as junk bonds. But Nikola bonds have also been downgraded to CC rating, which is the bottom here. The reason why it did not go down to D grade even though it is already in default is because there is a glimmer of hope that it can be repaid if it is taken over. However, it is already being traded at 40% of the issue price rather than interest. If you negotiate with creditors and readjust bond prices and interest rates, you can significantly lower costs. Well, these issues are up to you to deal with. What will you do after selling Nikola? Alan Eberhardt said confidently. I'm going to focus on Space C. Space is a huge market that cannot be compared to automobiles. Taekyu showed curiosity. 5. Space exploration. The company he had worked hard to grow went bankrupt and was sold. If he was a normal person, he would have been frustrated, but he had a rather relaxed expression on his face. After all, only successful cases are well known, but in fact there are not one or two businesses where he has failed. Perhaps the reason he is a genius is because he continues to challenge after overcoming such failures. Would it be possible for me to do that? Thinking like that, Taekyu muttered with a serious expression for nothing. Is it possible that a full-fledged universe century will open? Even with space development, the space century will not open. When you think of space, of course, the first thing that comes to mind is NASA. As an institution under the direct control of the president, it can be said that it is a leader in space development. However, space development costs a lot of money, but it is not a business that makes immediate profits. I don't know if it was when they were fighting an arms race and pride battle with the Soviet Union during the Cold War, but now the government is like a hippo eating money. In fact, since the 1980s, NASA's budget has been shrinking year by year, and a lot of talented people have left. Due to a lack of budget, they started a forced diet, and NASA decided to focus on its original tasks of research and exploration, and transferred other tasks such as space cargo transportation and satellite launch to private companies. Here's Alan Everhart. He founded Space C, a private space company, and received a technology transfer from NASA, winning projects such as ISS, International Space Station, cargo transportation. Unlike state institutions that are operated by government tax, private companies that are operated by receiving investment prioritize profitability. Alan Eberhart came up with a groundbreaking idea to cut costs. When the spacecraft leaves the atmosphere, the first stage rocket is separated and the second stage rocket is ignited. At this time, the separated first stage rocket falls to the ground and shatters. If this first stage rocket can be recovered and reused, 80% of the launch cost can be saved. In other words, the cost can be reduced to 1/5 of the existing one. It seems like a great idea, but it's not that other people didn't think of it. Anyone can have an original idea. It's just difficult to make it a reality. Could it not have been made because other people couldn't even think of a smartphone or an electric car? This plan was also easy to say, but it took a lot of trial and error to succeed, and there were many skeptics. However, SpaceX succeeded in recovering it by repropelling the first stage rocket separated from the atmosphere and landing it on the ground after Yora's turn. It was like opening a new chapter in space exploration. If the cost is low, the number of launches will increase, and if the number of launches increases, the price will become cheaper due to economies of scale. Perhaps thanks to the development of these technologies, the United States, Russia, and China are again focusing on space technology development. If a full-fledged space age opens in the future, what will happen to SpaceX? I heard you are getting married. Yes. It's better not to get married. Living alone is the best. You say very nice things in front of people who are getting married. By the way, he has been divorced twice. Why are there so many divorces? Anyway, congratulations. I will give you a wedding present. He handed out 2 tickets with the SpaceX logo on them. What? This is a space travel ticket? Taeyong asked in surprise. Wow. Were you really doing this? Of course. We will do it from next year. Even if it's a space trip, it doesn't go very far and it goes up to low Earth orbit in a capsule and then comes back to Earth soon. Tickets are actually on sale, and despite the $300,000, it is known that reservations are already full. It is said that the world's richest and famous Hollywood actors applied. You can have this kind of experience. Is money a problem? I can't believe this time has come. When the media raised stability issues, he himself went to space in a capsule. How was it? Did it really look like a pale blue dot? He laughed bitterly. In the words of Professor Carl Sagan. In 1990, the Voyager 1 spacecraft sent a photo to NASA. It had a single faint blue dot on the screen, all black. That was Earth. If you look closely, it doesn't look like that. You'd better see it yourself than tell me. Tickets are available, but reservations must be made in advance. One piece of this is $300,000 and 2 pieces is a whopping $600,000. It's a huge amount to give for free, but if I write it, it'll be good publicity. It really looks like we are going on our honeymoon to space. Taekyu asked, his eyes bright. Do you have anything for me? Then Everhart said bluntly. Buy one. You have a lot of money. Alan Eberhart shared his ideas. The demand for telecommunications satellites is increasing thanks to advances in data and communications and reduced launch costs. SpaceX plans to dominate this market. He recently announced the SpaceLink plan to launch more than 10,000 satellites and build a dense internet network around the world. The plan has been approved by U.S. government authorities and is already being implemented. It sounds like a communication satellite, but it is actually closely related to us. It's a Vrmorpk. As virtual reality games exchange thousands of times more data than existing online games, a faster and more accurate communication network is needed. Well, this is not only for us but for all companies that deal with data. So, are you shooting satellites in advance? Even now, rockets carrying 50 to 60 satellites are being launched into space. In the long run, humanity must go to Mars. Taejaya's eyes lit up. The Mars migration plan? I saw it on the news. I asked him, when will it be possible? We will send cargo spaceships in 3 years to build a Mars base and send people in 5 years. We will create a habitable environment within 10 years, and gradually increase it to create a colony that can accommodate 1 million people. There are also plans to build bases and factories on the moon. These are unrealistic stories that would appear in any sci-fi movie. If someone had said this a few years ago, they might have been treated like crazy. But now things have changed. Although the pace may be a bit slower, these plans are being implemented one by one. He said assertively. Eventually, mankind will go out into space. It's just a matter of when. What will happen to Space C when that day really comes? Maybe it can be reborn as a huge company that cannot be compared to Nikola? I admired myself. Some people dream of pioneering space when most people are pounding for limited resources and markets on Earth. One day their dreams will become a reality and the benefits will be enjoyed by all. Although Space C is most famous because of Alan Everhart's recognition, dozens of private space companies have been established in the United States alone, launching satellites and spacecraft competitively. The space development competition led by NASA, National Aeronautics and Space Administration, Roscosmos, Russian Space Agency, ESA, European Space Agency, and CNSA, China Hangzhou Republic, seems to have shifted to private companies. It is no exaggeration to say that it is the second space boom since the Cold War era. Another well-known company in this field is Red Origin. The company was founded by AMZ CEO Jake Byron at his own expense. Some say they are sacrificing for the future of mankind, but the reality is different. Companies never do things that don't make money. It is because they judged that the market potential is huge to start developing space technology, which costs a lot of money. At the current rate of technological development, tangible results will be achieved within a few years at the shortest and 10 years at the longest. In fact, it is already making a profit by launching satellites and selling space travel tickets. Taekyu, who heard the story, was amazed. Why are these things not well known in Korea? Because there is no Korean company among them. Korea is one of the world's leading technological powers, but unfortunately, it is close to the infancy stage in the development of space technology. As much as you invest in anything, results are bound to come, but neither the government nor the company are interested in things that don't make money right away. Alan Everhart thrust his body forward. I have another plan that has not been announced yet. That is why I asked to meet the CEO today. Wasn't it just because of the takeover of Nikola that we met? What? We are going to establish a Space C subsidiary to make electric planes. I was surprised to myself, but I asked calmly. Electric plane? Electric planes are similar to electric vehicles in many ways. The basic principle of generating power by moving a motor with a battery is the same. There is only a difference between running on the road or flying. The electric plane referred to here is more like a small plane or a manned drone than a large passenger plane. It is a short-distance movement with a small number of people, like a car. This is ultimately included in the category of mobility. So ride-sharing companies are jumping in and automakers are also showing interest. Some companies have made a flying car that can fly by spreading its wings while running on the road. This makes sense, but it's actually happening. Electric planes are much safer and more efficient than conventional planes. By removing the engine, noise can also be resolved, so it is possible to construct an airport between the city center and the city center. Airports are usually several tens of kilometers from the city center. There are problems with securing a site and safety, but the biggest reason is the noise of the jet engine. Alan Eberhart thinks that, just by solving this problem, it is possible to create an urban airport that connects cities like an intercity bus terminal. Originally, when Nikola grew up a bit, I thought I would go ahead. But now that the car is out of my hands, I want to challenge myself in the field of electric airplanes. How realistic is this again? There are only a few companies that make large passenger planes, such as Boeing and Airbus. However, small airplanes are relatively simple in structure and easy to manufacture. Even more so if there is no engine. So, even a new startup can take on a challenge. What will happen if Space C enters this market? He never built an electric plane, but he has experience building electric vehicles and spacecraft. Aviation and space are closely related to each other and are usually grouped into the same category. In some ways, it is only natural for Space C to turn to the aviation sector. Above all, compared to space technology development, electric planes are more likely to become money more immediately. Alan Eberhart brought it up. I would like to create a joint venture with OTK company in the development of electric planes. I admired myself. If it were anyone else, he would have been frustrated with his failure, but he is already jumping in search of new opportunities. Where the hell does this passion come from? He seems to be the type of person who has to constantly challenge himself regardless of money. In a way, this too could be said to be his talent. However, Space C is tight with the business it is currently running. Investments will be required to establish a subsidiary. If you set up a company, there will be a lot of people who want to invest. He already has a history of succeeding with Nikola and Space C. Although Nikola went bankrupt, this was due to the emergence of a strong competitor. Before Carlos introduced the AD3 and AD4, Nikola was hailed as one of the best electric car makers. Investors will be happy to open their wallets and give him money as long as it shows the potential. The investment is not important. Then what does it matter? It's a battery. Whether it is an electric vehicle or an electric plane, the key is the battery. The reason Nikola failed was because of the advent of OTK batteries. I nodded. Because airplanes are harder to increase the weight and volume of batteries than cars. The cooperation of OTK company is required in battery supply. It is thanks to the OTK battery that the investment in electric planes is so active in the first place. All electric planes currently being manufactured are using OTK batteries and are requesting that they be produced according to their specifications. They're going to work together to make an airplane with Space C, an OTK company to make a battery for it. That's right. Not a bad suggestion. Battery technology continues to evolve. Although the commercialization of JN battery failed, Professor Haman Kim is trying to create another battery. As he said, if electric planes are activated, they will be able to create new markets beyond just replacing existing planes. And it will be a new opportunity. As I was thinking about it, something came to my mind. After a while, when I woke up, Takeu and Alan Eberhardt were staring at me. I said as if nothing had happened. I should discuss this issue with Professor Haman Kim. Are you okay now? Alan Eberhardt was delighted with my words. Of course. Still, I really wanted to see Professor Haman Kim, who made OTK batteries. Wait. Let me tell you now. I called. Professor Haman Kim answered the call with a tired voice. What's up? Someone said they wanted to see the professor. I'm sorry, but tell me I'm busy. When all the people you want to meet, when do you start R&D? I said as if to hang up the phone. Hey, I'll tell you that. Don't regret it later. Then Professor Haman Kim asked. Who are you? Are you a politician or a businessman? Alan Everhart. Who is that? I think I heard the name somewhere. Nikola and Space C founders. Professor Haman Kim was surprised at those words. What? That Everhart? Then you should have talked about it earlier. You must be busy with R&D, so I'll stop here. No. Bring it to me. No, do I have to go up to Seoul? I said with a smile. We will go there now. We got into the car and headed to the OTK lab. Professor Haman Kim greeted us as usual with a beard growing wildly on his ponytail. Nice to meet you. Welcome. Alan Everhart rejoiced and took her hand. I've always wanted to see you, Professor. Professor Haman Kim guided the research center. The other researchers were both amazed and delighted by his sudden appearance. The two talked for hours without getting tired, as if they had met an old friend. The topics were also varied. Electric vehicles, batteries, electric airplanes, spaceships, lunar factories, Mars bases, solar energy, traveling wave reactors, etc. Because of the plethora of technical terms, it was difficult for me and Taikyu to follow the conversation. Is there anything in common with the developers? Carlos CEO Daryl Sagan announced plans to acquire Nikola and began negotiations with creditors. Mergers and acquisitions require government approval, even if they are negotiated between companies. If Carlos has to take over Nikola anyway, the number of production units is far below that of GM or Ford, so if the negotiations are completed well, there will be no problems. Unlike Shoei Karis is an American company. President Ronald tweeted that it was a good thing for American manufacturing. At the same time, another news broke out. OTK company announces the establishment of a joint venture with SpaceX. Read more at wuxiax.com. Jinho Kong collaborates with Alan Eberhardt to advance into the electric airplane market. Yesterday's enemy is today's friend. There are no permanent enemies or allies in the business world. Although only announcing a joint venture, related companies expressed caution that OTK company might advance into the aerospace industry in earnest this time. Electric vehicles, batteries, Vermaperg Simangium development, TWR data centers, pornography, etc. I'm too busy with what I'm doing right now, so I don't have the energy to do it. Ting said to me. Yeji is working fine. I was worried that not being married to Rothschild would cause any problems. Surely. I didn't say anything, but actually I was a little worried. By the way, if foreknowledge is wrong, can I keep believing that? You could be wrong at any time in the future. Or is it possible to choose a choice because it shows the most probable future rather than a fixed future? Ugh. He is an otaku-like keen analytical power. Taeyong got up from his seat. I'm going out for a bit. Where? Haeyoung is in a hurry. What brings you here? I do not know. I'll be there for a while. Is Min Ha-young trying to make a confession? After arriving at the cafe in a Lamborghini, Taekyu left valet parking and went inside. I saw Min Ha-young, who came first, sitting in the corner. Taeyong waved his hand. I'm here. The moment Min Ha-young raised her head to look at Taekyu, he suddenly burst into tears. It's Taekyu. She cried so loudly that everyone in her cafe looked at her at once. Taeyong asked, confused. Ugh. What is it? Have you ever had any malicious comments? Isn't it fun? Can't you see me anymore? Are you gonna get off? Do you want to get rid of webtoons and learn skills? Damn, it's not. Min Ha-young cried and brought out her story.